Welcome to Warblog. Today I'm going to look at one of these three games. Now, I had an idea of which one I wanted to play. I'm sure it was one of these. Yes, this is it. Now I remember why. Because it's a seek and destroy mission. And I can remember sort of thinking, I'll do it like this. I knew there was something I had in mind. Couldn't remember what it was. So anyway, so this is Yemen, and these are the Houthi units, and they're actually doing this. I think it's Operation Dawn of Freedom. And it's actually, I mean, it doesn't say this on the label, but it looks as though it's a security operation across Al-Bayda, removing Al-Qaeda and ISIS elements. And they look to be sort of, fighting, in earnest, really. But it's sort of quite different to their usual sort of activity. So I thought I would set this one up. So basically, I mean, it's probably worth looking at the notes. There are 7 hidden ISIS units on the map, but there's not too many. They've got off-table artillery as well. There's not too many Houthi units, and so there they are: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the thing is, this might be a very boring game because you've got to find them. So let's just jump into play. And we've got to sort of say, well, okay. My screen's not very big, but exactly how would you do this? Well, it's a sort of search and destroy mission, but at the same time, you've basically got to get all these villages. So to some extent, we could sort of say, well, we'll just go for the villages. But what happens if there's someone there or there? And what could how else could we do this? Do we want to create a a big sort of strong line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that could be starting from there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we'd have a sort of a tool that could go like this, cutting a huge swathe of terrain out, and then of course we can offset that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 with that, and that would cover all of this. And then of course the same thing here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and that would cut all of that. So basically we'd be able to do the whole map. I mean, we could even offset it a bit with 3 big sweeps, and this sweep would actually get these 3 elements in there. So that could be one way of doing it, and that would be the really boring, methodical, maybe proper way to do it. But alternatively, you might want to sort of say, well, okay, well, that's one way of doing it, but if you had a proper game with a set of game mechanics, you could set, say, some sort of time limit, and the time limit represented the depletion of resources, or the need to do it within a certain given time because of political will, for example. Not that necessarily that would be implicit in this case, but they probably wouldn't have the opportunity to spend that much time doing it that way. So, and because it's a game, what I think I'm going to do instead is to got 1, 2, 3, 4 groups, and this one's on its own. So I'm going to have 4 groups with this in support, or at least 4 lots of 2. So I'm going to send this guy there. I'm going to send this guy along the road with the intention of going there. This guy is going to go there. And this guy is going to come up here. And then depending on how things go, he will come in to support operations against this and this, and everything else will sort of fall in. So basically we're sending him up there, him across there, him with the intention of going into the center, and him going all the way up to this end and him coming over to here. It's not the best way of doing it, but so I'm going to do it, and then he can sort of be a reserve unit. So let's start that. So the roads are going to be fairly important because you can only travel 3 off-road. So we want to choose a different route for these guys. So they can only move 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, and these guys are going to go up this way. Again, the roads are quite important. And now this guy is going to come down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and try and get himself into a sort of supporting position somewhere. And that's it. So, the ISIS units don't have any movement, don't have any units, so there's nothing for them to do. Right, so we've sort of taken part of this. Did it only go down 0.75? Maybe that's because it's an irregular unit. Let's leave these guys in here to speed things up. 1, 2, 3, 4. No. Ooh. Okay, we found some of these guys on the road now. So I think we should use our artillery to attack them. No, that's not artillery. The artillery's here. 0.8 damage. Okay. 1.8. So we've got some contact here. So he might want to start considering coming back. Okay. Now it'll be interesting to see how much damage one Al-Qaeda unit can do. Because he could attack. We could head this way. Okay. Right, well, we want to take this position here. Let's commit him to that. It's an interesting game, actually. I think it's one of those games that sort of appeals to me in the sense that there's not a lot going on, but it's disparate. That you've got clear actions happening here, the exploitation of this road, and this engagement here, which was sort of out of the blue and couldn't be predicted, and now it's sort of set off certain consequences. Now, I think we should start off with using our artillery on that. 0.6. And because he ran away, we could probably only get one unit in there. I think it's going to be worth knocking him back a bit more. Yeah, we've got a DR. Pushed up to 3.4. He could still attack, but he ran away the first time, or he would have been better off attacking, and he's probably run away again and get into Al-Bayda where he'll be a lot harder to attack. I think that's the idea. And it's the ISIS turn, and that's what they're going to do. Okay, so we're taking those elements there. Maybe we can... No. Okay, that's fine. I'm trying to take this position and this position. So we use our artillery here. Right, well, let's prepare for this assault. So he'll be able to recover once. And that's what it's going to do. Pushing him down to 3.1. Get some artillery in there. 0.85. This is as much as we can afford. DE. Right, so we've got 1 out of 7 units now. Now it seems quite simple, but when you look at the videos that they show of these sort of actions taking place, you know, it's quite a reasonable reflection on, you know, simulation of what was happening, because no one's, you know, there's no sort of indication that they're putting up a fierce struggle and that there are sort of major engagements. I mean, they're encountering them, they're engaging small arms fire, but generally pushing them back, and that's what happened here. The situation becomes more challenging when you find 2 or 3 of them accidentally at one time, and they manage to sort of counterattack. So if we played this game, it would be very different, because he wouldn't necessarily be there. So it changes every time. Right, we are trying to commit these over here. It's going to take a while to get there. And they're still trying to take these places. And that's it. Okay. ISIS player has no units. So they're still trying to get up to Al-Ijaz. and we can move into Al-Ghurabat. I seem to have they don't seem to be progressing. Why is that? I wonder. I have to look into that, and I certainly can't even bring myself to even imagine looking into it. But it's certainly not changing. So maybe irregular units can only. I think actually that's what happens. Actually, I think irregular units can't take possession of a town. All they can do is reduce it to a certain level. So it's gone from negative to positive, but once it becomes positive, they can't take it any further. I think that's what's actually what we're seeing here, which is interesting, because I would assume imply that the Houthis need to have proper militia force, like a military police or a police, to sort of actually leave behind, to properly take over these places. But I think, for all intents and purposes, I'm going to be satisfied with that. I might have to reconsider how that works, but it might even be in the rules. I can't be bothered to look at the moment. But I think that we can assume that it's not going to get much more beyond 0.25. So let's move into Al-Ijis. Where are these other 6 units? You can only have 2 in a stack. Wasn't the best of moves, really. No Al-Qaeda units, so right, so now what we need to do really is to sort of try and find the rest of these units. So where might they be? What we could do is form a line like this. Hmm. Nothing. Hmm. Well, I can tell you one thing. If they find anything, they're going to be perfectly placed to deal with it. Uh, right. Well, we know we want to get these ones, so let's use him there and him there. That covers that possibility. You go, put him there and him there. That covers that possibility. So now we just got to. So we've moved those. Put him there. It's a bit of a boring game, but I'm intrigued because I want to find these other units. Now, I've played this in situations like Nigeria, and it's usually, look at that. We've got one. And when they pop up, they tend to pop up in sort of really awkward positions like that. That was awkward. Because the problem now is that we've got this over here, which we can probably deal with, but we've only got this. If they can group together, they might be able to start causing a problem. But this is quite on its own with this sort of element, these elements down here. So what's he on? See, he can't come down here. They're all entrenched. What's he on? He can't move down. Right. So in the first instance, we've got artillery we can use. I think we should use that there. This is going to be the toughest. If we can crack this. Let's try. Oh, 1-to-1 exchange. There's some fierce fighting there, but I don't think they're going to last for long. And here, with some luck, we should push them out. Yes. Well, there you go. Tide has turned, and all of a sudden, they've got a formidable fighting force. Now, how do they want to do this? first blood against the Houthis. But that's left them in a brutal fight for survival. I'm going to lay down some artillery on these units. And then everyone is going to pile in. In the first instance, we're going to try and decimate this block of units. And yes, they succeed. It only gives us one against this. And we succeed there as well. Okay, so are they going to just run away? Probably. But can they fight? More bloodied Houthis' faces. And that's it. Artillery. I'm not sure they would have stood and fought, but I felt like it. Not the most graceful of military maneuvers, but maybe I should put a rule in that you can achieve the same effect if you can cut off all the zones of control. You know, so if they've not got, so they can't retreat through a zone of control, and that might be a little more agreeable, really. Okay. Ooh. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 2 more left on the board. They're desperate, so we're going to do it. Oh, an exchange. Well, he's not going to survive. So let's put this artillery down here. Let's just see whether we can get this with 1 hit without even bothering. Oh no, he's still alive. Got him. Right, well, I'm not going to do it anymore because it's half an hour. I think we've got 5 of them. Getting the other 2 will probably have got to be somewhere around here or somewhere on the board. I think they're sort of in the central region, so they're not. I don't think they're sort of anywhere sort of southwest of this line. I think we've covered most of this ground, but we found most of them over here, which gives us a sort of a reasonable indication that the rest might be sort of somewhere over here, but we'd have to do that line thing, and that'd be really boring just for 2 more units. I think it's an interesting game. I think that well, I think it was interesting the way it worked, and it'd be interesting to play it again. I think you could have interesting results if you played it again and again, but I can't see it being sort of particularly compelling to do that again and again, because it would just be a case of, well, are we going to be unlucky? I think the question is really sort of the sort of formation, because I think once you line up like that, it becomes a bit, I don't know, a bit arbitrary and a bit gamified. I think the strategy that I took initially was sort of fair and valid. I might have to look into. So long since I've done any of this, I can't remember anything. Okay, so nothing there about it. Let's have a look at objectives. Capturing objectives. I'll have to have a real good look into that. But I think what I did was I put in a rule to say that irregulars can't take units, can't basically send them any further into the positive area. But I'm not sure, I just simply can't remember. So, but that would make sense. If not, then there's an error somewhere. But I'm pretty sure I would have spotted that at some other point. So, yeah, but I think it's an interesting game. I mean, I think maybe it would make it more interesting if there were more random elements. Mainly because that would bring about that would raise the risk of peril more. But as a simulation of what's literally happening in this scenario, then I don't think it is worth doing that. And I think that the fact that at the end of this sort of game, and let's just assume it's over, although the Houthis are intact, they've had a 3 loss there, a 4 loss there, a 1 loss there, and a 1 there. It's 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, 9. So, they haven't got it without some difficulty or without some effort. And I think, if you were to play it sensibly and to consider things, you would say, well, okay, well, that's actually, they didn't get it for free. And as I played this just the once, you might say, well, okay, we had a loss of 9 depression factors. Obviously, we've got the ability to recover. We might have recovered, but I don't think we did. I think you can sort of consider the balance and consider what's actually happening, because this was just a clearance, so it wasn't as though this is a full sort of frontal Houthi assault on these areas. These the Al-Qaeda ISIS units in Yemen are not sort of, they're not strong like the Saudi-backed forces, where they have at least got, proper supplies. I think all they are at the very sort of, not so much the very best, but the most typical are probably, small arms. So they probably don't have any indirect fire. They probably certainly don't have any air support. So they're probably not really going to put up any sort of struggle. And I think, considering the Houthis have been up against, the Saudi-backed forces that are in theory, far more conventional in a sort of general sort of approach to things, they're probably going to find it quite easy going against these units. But at the same time, it's not simple, because the Americans spent 20 years in Afghanistan and they still couldn't boot them out of the sort of the desert lands, because they go to ground, and that's probably what they're doing here. So you probably find that the Houthis will have the same sort of problem that any sort of force has trying to root these sort of people out. However, they probably have a little advantage, because the sort of system that they want to replace with will probably be more conducive to the mindset of the indigenous population. What with the Houthis being Yemeni, you probably find that most of these people in here are just other Yemeni people that have developed a sort of an allegiance with the Islamic order, so to speak. There's probably quite a bit of overflow from the main Middle Eastern areas such as Iraq and Syria and Libya and Afghanistan, so they've probably got what we call foreign elements in support of what they're doing there, but I don't think to any major degree. I mean, you've got to consider sort of the extent of the Islamic State across the Middle East and Africa, so they've probably got some sort of support in that capacity. So they're not going to be easy to get rid of, but I don't think that they're necessarily going to be the same sort of problem. I was reading something today about some efforts in Sudan. I think it was Sudan, and the article states that the towns were raided by bandits, and so this is quite a different sort of report. I mean, I'm not sure the significance of it, but it's not they were raided by Boko Haram or the Islamic or Al-Qaeda or the Islamic State. They ceased to become, in this instance, and it could be that they were just bandits, but usually they label these terrorist organizations. Like Boko Haram is always Boko Haram in Nigeria, and in sort of Zimbabwe, I think, wherever it is, the Islamic State down there. And at one point they ceased to become Al-Qaeda and Islamic State fundamentalists, and they become bandits who are essentially just lawless people. And I think there's a subtle but all telling difference between the two. But anyway, that's that really. Spent a bit longer than I hoped, than I aimed on this, but that's how it always is. You start it, and it always amazes me how time flies when you're having fun, so to speak. And I guess this is in some extent because I've got some other projects that I'm working on, and it can be quite time consuming to produce a 4-minute video, 5-minute video when you're doing other sorts of things. And quite a lot of people on YouTube will produce videos that can take days, weeks to produce, and here I am with a 39-minute video that's taken me 39 minutes to produce. So it's always the appeal of this type of content that it's quite nice. But anyway, other than that, I'll leave it at that, and I'll speak to you later. Cheerio.